All right, guys. The last chapter of this, starting from chapter 14, verse 32. And they went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to the disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took with him Peter and James and John, began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch." And going a little further, he fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, that the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. So we see he's praying to his Father. No indication that Jesus is God or that the Trinity is true. Verse 57. And some stood up and bore false witness against him, saying, "We heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with human hands, and in 3 days I will build another, not made with hands." It's kind of a misquote what he said earlier, isn't it? According to their own book. Yet even about this their testimony did not agree, and the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus, "Have you no answer to make? What is it these men testify against you?" But he remained silent and made no answer. Again the high priest asked him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?" That tells you right there what the Jews thought he was. And Jesus said, "I am, guilty as charged. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." And the high priest tore his garments and said, "What further witness do we need? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your decision?" And they all condemned him as deserving death. And some began to spit on him and to cover his face and strike him, saying to him, "Prophecy." And the guards received him with blows. So there it is. Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? And this was enough to kill him over. The Messiah, the Son of the Most High. So think about this when you read the other books. They all have to agree, right? That was enough to kill him for. And we go back to verse 66. And as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servants' girls and the high priest came, and seeing Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You also were with the Nazarene Jesus." But he denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you mean." And he went out into the gateway, and the rooster crowed. And the servant girl saw him and began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. And after a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." But he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know this man of whom you speak." And immediately the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered what Jesus said to him. Man. So far, so good. I don't see any Trinity creeping out anywhere in the book of Mark. Chapter 15. And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "You have said so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. And Pilate asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate was amazed. Now that the feast, he used to release from them one prisoner from whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison, who had committed murder in the insurrection, there was a man called Barabbas. And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he usually did for them. And he answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" So whatever these other charges were that they brought against him, apparently none was more blasphemous than king of the Jews. You don't think Pilate would have loved to put on the cross, God of the Jews? You think he would have liked that? I do. To kill the God of the Jews in a pompous manner would have been quite entertaining for him. For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priests had delivered him up. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again said to them, "Then what shall I do with the man you call the King of the Jews?" And they cried out, "Crucify him." And Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" And they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having Jesus scourged, delivered him over to be crucified. And the soldiers led him away and placed, that is the governor's, at the palace, that is the governor's headquarters. And they called together the whole battalion, and they clothed him in a purple cloak, and twisting together his crown of a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews." So we know what they were calling him. Everyone was calling him King of the Jews. That was the charge, the sedition. And they were striking his head with a reed and spitting on him and kneeling down and pay homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. Verse 21. And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. And they brought him to a place called Golgotha. Golgotha. Sorry, I messed that up. Which means place of the skull. And they were offered with him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what each should take. And it was on the third hour when they crucified him, and the inscription of the charge against him read, "King of the Jews." So no Trinity. He wasn't charged with even being God. He was charged with being the King of the Jews. And with him they crucified two robbers, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "Aha! You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes mocked him to one another, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself." This is the scribes talking now. These are the people that accused him of blasphemy. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, let the Messiah, the ruler of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe. Those who were crucified with him also reviled him. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" So God the Son said that, right? Okay. And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "Behold, he is calling Elijah." And some ran and filled a sponge with sour wine to put it on a reed to give to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come take him down." And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he had breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was the Son of God, the Messiah, the Blessed One's sent one." Chapter 16. Verse 1, when the Sabbath had passed, Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of James, the Salome, brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, and when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb, and they were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us, that from the entrance of the tomb?" And looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back. It was very large, and entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting at the side, dressed up in a white robe. And they were alarmed. And he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell all his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." And they went out from the field of the tomb, for trembling and astonishment had seized them, and they were nothing, said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Now that is where the original text ends. I don't think anyone would deny that, but feel free to read the rest if you'd like and see if there's anything about the Trinity in there. So there it is, the whole of the book of Mark. And I went through it probably pretty quickly. Yeah, there's other things I would like to say. There's so many things you could say, but I just wanted to touch on the passages that would kind of show us who God was according to Mark. And there it is. I mean, where is the Trinity in there? If you were trying to convince me of the Trinity from the book of Mark, and I'm a firm believer that every gospel should have every component to lead somebody to an understanding of Christ that is adequate, without a doubt. And if you're going to tell me that the book of Mark doesn't have the Trinity in it, then that is a blaring omission on Mark's part, because that's supposed to be Peter's teachings and words. So, I'm not going to drone on too much. It's a lot to read and keep track of. But read the book of Mark, whether you're a Trinitarian or something else, and try to find it. Excuse me. Try to find the teaching of the Trinity in the book of Mark. Just try and find it somewhere. It's not there. We see he carried God's gospel. We see that. Excuse me. We see that it was God's gospel. We see he's called the Son of God. We see he's called the sent from the Blessed One. We see he's called the King of the Jews, and that was the charge. So when you look at books like John chapter 10, and you're trying to figure out why they called him God, and he said, "Isn't written you are gods?" You see what's going on. You make yourself Elohim, and he says, "Isn't it written that you're Elohims?" And go read that psalm. I think it's Psalm 82, I think. Go read the psalm itself and see what it's talking about. So there it is, the book of Mark. The Trinity is just not there. The teaching is not there. So you have a gospel that doesn't have the Trinity in it. And it's short. It's something you can read in one sitting. And, if you want to say, well, the gospel was designed to say something different about Jesus, and it wasn't about the Trinity, whatever. There were people, all they had was the Gospel of Mark for close to 200 years. That was it. So what would they have believed about it? What would a Jew who came across this book believe about Jesus? Whatever you want to say, it certainly wouldn't be the Trinity. So think about that. And like I said, that's the strongest thing, man. They charged him. They charged him with being the king of Israel. And if you don't think Pilate would have loved to put the God of Israel on that cross, no one was making that claim. No one was saying that. No one thought that. The disciples didn't think so. No one thought it. So it's a teaching that is foreign to the book of Mark. Think about it. God bless.